What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I've got another very important AMC update to bring all of you this afternoon. So what we're going to be covering in this video is a brief update on the option chain going into the end of this week. As you guys all know by now, the option chain does tell us a very important story. If there's more open interest on the puts and call side going into any particular week, we could expect to see some more price volatility in any given stock because of the amount of hedging that those market makers and institutional sellers of options will have to do. Now, the second thing that we need to cover is this really important aspect of the Ortex data called utilization. If you remember, about a month and a half ago, we started talking about the concept of forced loan share recalls. Now, this has to do with the utilization getting really high and the market essentially for loan shares, the interest rates go up. And a lot of these different institutions, according to a University of Notre Dame professor's research article, that when the utilization gets above 75%, there's a 1 in 26 chance every single day that we will see some or all of these shares get forcibly recalled. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this, and we're going to get into a lot of that in the remainder of this video. Now, what we really need to talk about, and the reason why a lot of you guys clicked on this video, is that 7.1 billion synthetic shares. You guys sent me this Reddit post a million times this morning to go over, and I've done some research. I've talked to some people who are in the statistical world, and I'm going to give you guys my opinion on exactly what is going on with this calculation that this individual is doing that supposedly proves that there are 7 billion synthetic shares of AMC. So before we get into all of that information, if you enjoyed the information and analysis that I provide for you in this video, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it really helps us out a whole lot in getting this information out to as many people who want to learn. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So today we did see a pretty significant uptick in AMC in the morning, but we really just got knocked all the way back down. If you remember the video I posted yesterday, we talked about that 5 million shares that was available to be loaned out. When we come back over to Stonko Tracker, we can see that now there's only about 200,000 shares available to borrow. So most likely, a lot of those shares were used against us today. So popping over to the option chain, this is going to be the weekly expiration date for this week. We see the open interest on the 40s is about 10,000, in the 50s is about 11,200. So those are some decently key levels where we could see some buying pressure added in from the market makers, but 40 has been a key level over the past couple of weeks, and we haven't been able to break above and stay above 40 yet. Now, I do not think that the call option chain right now is really setting up for a large gamma squeeze, but I say this every time, that buying pressure is buying pressure. Now, on the put side, we do see a decent amount of open interest, but again, there's a lot at this $30 strike. So we would have to have a significant decrease in the share price of AMC for these institutions to have to go out and short underlying shares of AMC to cover a lot of these options that they have sold. So when we come over to Ortex, looking at the utilization here, 7 days ago, it was at 88.52, and currently it is at 91.17. What this means is this is the amount of shares that institutions are willing to lend out versus the amount of shares that they have lent out already. When the utilization gets higher, think about a scarcity aspect of any good. When there's a higher level of scarcity, it's going to cost more in order to get that specific good. The good in this case is the loaned out shares. So the cost to borrow and the borrow fee rates that you're going to have to pay in order to get your hands on shares of AMC is going to go up as the utilization goes up as well. We saw this reflected when the utilization got a lot higher in the beginning of June and the end of May. Now, when we talk about the concept of a forced share recall, if you guys have been watching my videos for a while now, first of all, thank you to all of you guys. And second, we pretty much understand the relationship between the institutions that are loaning out shares and the institutions that are receiving them. The institutions loaning out the shares can essentially recall them or take them back at any time. But you do have to be careful if you're one of these institutions, because if you do issue one of those forced share recalls and the institution you are loaning those shares to does not really want to close their position, that is not really a good business relationship or a business move, and that institution, whether it be a hedge fund or any other type of fund, may take that business elsewhere. So when we're thinking about how the institutions can recall these shares at any time. Why would they do this? So that brings us back to the scarcity aspect. When the cost of borrow rates go up, the prime brokers or any other institution that is loaning out their shares see an opportunity to generate more interest on the shares that they are loaning out. So if the cost of borrow goes up due to the utilization going up, they might issue some of those forced share recalls, force some of these positions to get covered, these short positions, and reissue or reloan out these shares at a higher interest rate. So this is something that we need to keep a lookout for over the next couple of weeks and months as we see the utilization continuously climb up. Now, before we get into this synthetic share situation, we need to understand why this is circulating out right now. When we come over to Adam Aron's tweet, August 9th is our next quarterly earnings call. It will be webcasted so you can listen, and here is where it gets interesting. For the first time ever, we will take questions from individual investors on the call. So there's a platform right now where people can sign up and essentially create an account, link their brokerage accounts, and it shows how many shares are voting on specific questions. Now, this is where the statistics come in. So this individual, these are the posts that you guys sent me. So this individual did some math based on the sample size of 444 retail investors that at the time were voting on this one specific question, which we will come over and take a look at right here. It was this one. Do you have any plans to offer a dividend? Again, now there has been 2.5 million shares voted on a total amount of people of 1.5K. Now, coming back over here, this is the calculation that this individual is using. So with this one, it yields essentially 4.8 billion shares, and it was recalculated again with some of the new data that we are seeing. So it got up to 1,000 apes, which now again we can see is 1.5 thousand, and the total amount of shares that had voted on it at the current time was 1.7 million. According to these numbers, it would suggest that there could be, according to the statistical analysis model, 7.2 billion shares. But here is the thing. I was talking to some people who do basically statistics for a living, and I asked them to look at the methods that this individual was using. So what they essentially said was they're using curves in order to try to make something a linear model. So the calculations that this individual is doing is not necessarily the correct way to do it. And again, in my opinion, I don't think there is any way to really tell for sure how many shares are actually out at a given time. Because one, people are selling, there are FTDs covered, there is naked shorting occurring, there are synthetic shares being created. So even if you were able to figure out the total amount of shares of AMC being circulated around at one given time, the next second or the next minute, it is most likely going to be different. But here is what I would like to point out. The fact that this individual, shout out to this person right here on Reddit, is looking at this information and is trying to do this calculation is an awesome thing. What I would suggest to a lot of people is if you have a background in statistics, you do this for a living, or if you know somebody who does, try and look at these numbers and try to help out with this calculation. Again, in my opinion, this is kind of the best option that we have to try to see how many synthetic shares or shares that are out there that supposedly are not supposed to exist. This is kind of our best option to really figure it out, because we know that when AMC or any other company runs these proxy votes, that the proxy companies that run these votes, if they receive more votes than they're supposed to, they'll just trim off the top and make the numbers work. So this is the preliminary stage of what we have right now going into this statistical analysis. So really, if you guys have any experience in this, make sure you take a look. Feel free to DM me your results on Twitter at ShortTheVix1, and we will definitely take a look at it. So right now, if you guys have looked at any of these Reddit posts or are trying to figure it out for yourself, in my opinion, this is speculation right now. I wanted to try to get my thoughts on this situation out to you guys. Again, it is completely possible and it is very probable that there are more shares circulating around right now in the market for AMC shares than there are actually supposed to exist. But in my opinion, it's going to be really hard to prove a lot of those numbers. And as you've seen with anybody else that has put out any sort of statistical analysis of AMC shares in the past, they always frame it in a way that this is not the end-all be-all. This is just an estimate based on statistics. There's also a couple of other things that are kind of wrong with these different types of analyses. We know that a couple of different brokerages such as Webull, Revolt, and a couple of others actually don't give access to these types of third-party providers. So there's a sample selection issue. But again, if you guys want to take a look at this for yourselves, run the analysis, send it to me. I will definitely take a look at it. So that is going to conclude this update for AMC. If you enjoyed the information and analysis that I provided for you in this video, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it really helps us out a whole lot in getting this information out to as many people who want to learn. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video, so you get to stay up to date on all of your favorite stocks, learn about a couple of new ones, and see exactly which options I'm trading and which strategies I am using to trade them. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.